All right, mic check, I'm good. So I'm Max Ceron, CWB Association Welding podcast. Today we have a really cool guest, welding podcast.
The show is about to begin.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the CWB Association podcast. My name is Max Ceron, and as always, I am looking everywhere for the coolest stories I can find. Today, I have someone who I've met, hung out with, and is a wonderful person who also works here at CWB. So we're going to get into some deep dives here with Montana Woolley, who's coming to us from Ontario. Montana, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm feeling good. It's like minus 50 here in Regina, Saskatchewan. So I'm hiding out in my house. I'm supposed to go do some errands this afternoon, but I don't know if I'm gonna because it's real cold.
That seems fair. I mean, I'm dreaming at a -8 and it's a little bit snowy, but it's not too bad out today.
Yeah, Ontario, I'm going to get some gripe for this, but Ontario, they're kind of wimpy. It's like they get like an inch of snow or 2.5 centimeters of snow, and it's like school's off, no buses. Like I keep hearing these things like called snow days. I don't know if we've ever had a snow day that I can recall in my life in Saskatchewan, and we had like meters of snow and blizzards, and we're still going to school. What are you talking about? Like.
I see it. I mean, I just had my last winter in Alberta, close to the Saskatchewan border. So it was a different winter for sure. Very bitter, very cold. And actually that winter, there was more snow than they had seen in 10 years. And it was quite a small town. So they all equated it to the Ontario person moving to Alberta and bringing her snow with her.
Yeah, it's your fault.
It was, yeah, and I could see it. I understood why it was mine. But yeah, I would say it's different winters for sure. But there were snow days in my small town for the buses.
Oh, for buses.
There were two.
So if there was no buses, does that mean you didn't have to go to school, or you just had to find another way to school?
Pretty much, like if you walked, you're still walking.
Yeah, because I always walked, right? I didn't take a bus to school. I always walked. So I remember there was days that there was no buses, but you still had to go to school if one way or another, or you got to stay home. I'd be sitting at school sometimes and it'd be like half the students wouldn't show up because their parents let them stay home, and then my parents never let me stay home. So.
Oh, my parents always let me stay home. So it was a dream.
And that's how we ended up being welders, everyone. No. All right, Montana, let's talk a little bit about yourself. Let's talk first of all, what is it you do at CWB? What's your job?
So I'm inside sales. So I work with the CSRs, working with our certified companies or companies looking to be certified to get their personnel into courses to get qualified. So I primarily work in like welding supervisor, level 1, level 2, and all the kind of nitty gritty in between.
So
code books.
Lots of code books.
Wheeling and dealing.
So if a company calls CWB and says, "Hey, I'm interested in becoming a CWB certified company," does that person say, "Okay, I'm going to transfer you to Montana right now," or is there like preliminary steps that happen before that happens, like they get sent to you?
No, so I just work with the people. So another person in the company will work with the company to get it actually certified.
I see.
And I just work with getting people into the courses and really getting them the paperwork in order, making sure they know all the information, what exams they have to complete to get their certification for their welding supervisor, and that kind of stuff.
Cool. So to get to this job, it's been quite a winding path. And you're a young person, so it's been pretty winding for a young person.
It has. I mean, I feel like I have done so many jobs. I forget even when I started welding, when I had to give you that like little biography before we did the meeting. I had to go back and see when I had graduated, and I was like, wow, I'm getting old. I am getting
Oh
seasoned
my God.
here.
Don't even go there getting old. You're so young. All right. So I see here that you graduated from a 2-year apprenticeship in welding and fab in Cornwall, Ontario. So let's go back to before that. So you were born and raised in Ontario. Are you from
Yeah.
Cornwall?
No, I'm from a small town called Brockville.
Okay. All right.
So
So being raised in Brockville, Ontario, what was Montana's little girl dream? You know, when you're a young girl growing up, what is it that you wanted to be when you grew up?
Honestly, looking back, I never really had like a set path. I was always really flip-floppy. All I knew was I liked to make concoctions in the kitchen and I liked to rip apart electronics and see what put them together.
So you were
I didn't
thinking
really
either
know.
a chef or an engineer.
Pretty much, yeah. And my parents were really thinking like architect, I think, for
Mhm.
me. They really thought we're kind of trying to get that into my wheelhouse in my mind. But growing up, I really had no set, like, this is what I want to be. I remember it was that time in grade 12 where they're really trying to get you to apply to colleges and get you to figure out what you want to do. I was working part-time at Goodwill, hanging clothes in the evenings.
Mhm.
And I thought randomly, I was like, I could be a welder. I could do that.
Was it something you
And keep in mind,
saw? Did something cross your?
no,
Were you hanging up coveralls and were like, "Hey, welding"? I don't know.
no, it was like sweaters and t-shirts because they
Yeah.
were easy to hang up, so you could get them done quick. Like, but yeah, I kind of just honestly, I can't tell you why I decided that I should do this. I just did it, and I applied to do it. I told my career counselor at school that was like, I'm going to be a welder. So he had set me up to go and shadow a welder at a shop. And I thought it was rad. Like I
Mhm.
immediately fell in love with everything. The smell, the sound, how it looked, like what the process was, everything. So I did that. And then I got into that 2-year apprenticeship program. And I was one of the only ones who had never had any experience in welding. And to be clear, like I had never used a drill. I had never built anything. I had never used a grinder.
So not tool savvy.
Um,
Yeah.
No, I used to get my nails done every 6 weeks.
Mhm.
Like I was that, I used to be real on that. That stopped very quickly once getting into welding or school. That I stopped getting my nails done. But
It's
and
still
then I
nice
got
to
into
get them done
welding.
every now and then, though.
It is when I
Yeah.
get a break or I'm not too putsy, I'll get them done. But yeah, and then I started that program. Didn't really know what I was doing there. Had a lot of self-doubt the first few months, if I'm completely honest. I was like, I don't know
Mhm.
what I'm here for. Like, I'm not fitting in. But then I met Mark Metzloff, who was one of the teachers there, and he really took me under his wing and was like, yeah, you don't know what, he looked at me one day. He's like, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know a single thing, eh? I was like, no, I don't. I don't know a single thing on what I'm doing. And after that moment, he kind of took me under his wing and really took the time to like show me things. And I'm a big why person where if I don't understand why I'm doing it, I won't do it. You know what I mean? If I don't see a
Yeah.
principle behind it, not for everything, but in that sense, like it really helps me understand why I'm doing things. So he took me under his wing, and then I ended up getting the apprenticeship program or apprenticeship position at the college over the summer. And I worked just one-on-one with Mark, and he really taught me a lot of stuff. We did a lot of cool stuff like welding cans together, fitting a lot of weird, like neat stuff together, a ton of like little fitting tips and tricks that like you wouldn't really know until you've done it. And really like my skill took off and my confidence took off with like that mentorship. After that, I did the second year. It went well. It went well. Graduated, and I started in a small shop in my hometown right after graduation, doing a skyjack lifts for scissor lifts, doing the gates for those kinds of things, and like
Yeah.
kind of anything that would come through the door, any one-offs and like other small contracts. So I worked there for a while, getting used to that, kind of getting my feet wet. Met a lot of old guys that had been around. So again, like it was simple work, but with the people I was working with, I was just gaining so much knowledge all the time. And it was just like hanging out with friends, and it was rad. It was really a good time. Kind of got bored of that. So then I started getting into building windows and doors. Again, another simple job, but it really showed you how like job site construction, how like the house goes up, like where you're going to go in and measure for your windows and your door frames, like what you need to look at on the blueprint. Learned a ton from, again, like some of the older guys there, and like just it was nuts. I met a guy named Woolley there who like really schooled me. After that, I met this guy named Larry who was building docks for the St. Lawrence River. He had his own little company out of the back of his house outside of Brockville. And I used to go there in the evenings, and I was always double fifth in jobs. Like I was doing probably 2 welding jobs at a time most of the time. Like I'd work in the morning till about 3:30 in Kingston doing that windows and doors. And then I would drive back to Brockville and work in Brockville at this little welding shop from like 4:30 to midnight, get up and do it all over again. Like I just love learning.
All right. Let's stop here. We've covered a lot of things, and I already got questions building up. So let's go back to the start of this. You took a 2-year apprenticeship welding and fabrication program in Cornwall. So let's talk about that program. You said that you rolled in. How did you find that program? What is it a welding only? Is it weld fab? Is it 1 year of each? Explain what the program was and what that experience was like for you in a little bit more detail.
Okay, so at the beginning, it was bumpy. They start you off with cutting, oxyacetylene cutting and plasma cutting, and a lot of theory in the first couple of weeks. Then they start letting you in the shop more. And I thought it was a really great program with the structure where I was a beginner and I had grasped everything pretty quickly with like the teachers. Mm-hmm. It was small class sizes. Everybody was really buddy. Like it was a really good community of like everybody helping everybody in their booths.
How many girls was there, or other, types, or other females? Yeah.
I believe we started with, and don't hold me to it, I think we started with 6, and I know we finished with, I think, 4 or 5.
Okay, so not bad for a class.
No.
Yeah.
No, and obviously, like I had gotten really close with one of the other girls, mm-hmm. and it was really great having another female in the class to kind of bounce ideas off of, because and it was just really great. And the second year was more focused on fabricating things and the process behind making your measurements, making your calculations with the steel, fitting things together, where you did have a fitting and a drawing class. So you do a drawing class, draw your blueprint, and then right after you take it to your fitting class, and then you'd start cutting it out and working on your project in that aspect. So that was really cool, where they really show you start to finish how to do stuff. And then
when you're done, so like you finish this course, it sounds like you got pretty good welding, pretty good fab. Do you have to pick which trade you're going to follow? Like if you want to be a steel fabricator, take your hours and go down that path? Or was it like everyone that graduates is going to go off to welding? The fabricating was just to make you a better welder?
I mean, I think with how diverse and like what knowledge you gain from the program, you could go either way. I went the welding route, where I really enjoyed structural steel, but I know some of the other guys, like they really liked aluminum and stainless steel in that kind of job market. So they went more that way. But they do show you, like we did aluminum, we did stainless steel, and we did steel welding. We didn't do a ton of stainless steel, but they give you enough that you could get into a job and be like, hey, I just graduated. This is what I can do. Do you want to give me a go?
And then when you finished, how hard was it to find a job? Like you said, you're in a small town, Brockville. Cornwall's not huge either. No. Was there lots of work waiting for your class when you graduated?
I don't think any of us really had a hard time finding a job. I think like I found a job. I hadn't even graduated yet, and I had this job lined up. I think certain people were waiting for certain jobs to come up, so they had taken different jobs until that particular welding job came available. But I don't think anybody really and we all stayed in contact. Nobody had a hard time out of the gate. And with the program I took, because it's the 2-year fabrication and welding pre-apprenticeship program, during the summer, they'll help you find apprenticeships where you live. So then that way, like you're starting your apprenticeship hours in between the 2 years.
And that's really a struggle in Ontario, because apprenticeship's not that strong of a system in Ontario. I know they're pumping lots of money to try to strengthen it and make it stronger. Like in the West, obviously apprenticeship's a much bigger deal out in the West. So, it is good to hear that. Now, for you to get out there and get that first job and get your teeth, into the steel. You said right at the beginning of this that you started learning that you loved some of the things. And I love that you said you love the smell of welding, because that is something that, like, for welders, it's like secret code. Like, we'll walk into a shop, take a big whiff and be like, all right, someone's welding stainless. Smells like someone was grinding on some aluminum. Oh, I think someone's doing some root welds over there. You can tell a lot from smell. So what is your favorite or most recognizable of the smells?
Honestly, I think my favorite at any situation is stick welding. That's my favorite
But
smell
like 70-18 or like 60-10?
Yeah, 70, both. Like a little, I love when like you put you get that root cap or your root in with your 60-10, and then the smell of like your first 70-18 burning on top. And it's just so nice. And then like you get that little bit of grinding smell too. And it's banging, man. And I used to work part-time in a bar in Alberta. And I remember, I got a good sniffer.
Mm-hmm.
My dad says I'm like a little hound dog. Anyways, like I would see the guys come in and I could smell. I'm like, you were welding today. You weren't. Yeah. You were welding today. You weren't. So.
Well, my kids grew up around me welding, and then I didn't weld for a while. I went and they would notice when I'd come home and I was welding. They're like, oh, you welded today. You smell like welding again. You smell like steel. It's like, yeah, you got me. They knew right away. And I remember that from my dad. My dad would come home smelling like iron shavings because he was a boilermaker. So it's very interesting how those smells kind of like get locked in your brain. Like they're like core memories,
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you went to work for some windows and door places. I did some overhead door work. And let me tell you what I learned working windows and doors in construction is how out of square buildings are. And they tell you to put in windows and doors, which have to be perfectly square, into walls that are not even close to square. And I remember thinking, like, how come I have to be so precise, but they get like plus or minus an inch or a foot? I don't know. Like, how can that be so out of square and be okay? And then it comes to the welders and we have to be like within a 16th or we got fired. You know what I mean? Like,
I remember, like, because I was so naive, you know what I mean? Like, I wanted to see everything. I wanted to try a little bit of everything, but I knew I loved structure. Mm-hmm. So when I went into this windows and doors, and again, coming from like kind of like a very small ma and pa, like welding company where they're not like, there is tolerances, but like they understand, like I was learning. So like, I spent a lot of time with the grinder in the first few months, I really got to love it and got really good at it. But and then I would do these like to perfect, like, you know what I mean? Like I was so proud of them, get them all like just mint. We show up on site, put it in, and then I'm like,
why is there a giant gap over there? And
what the
and then the carpentry people are like, just put some shims in there, you're fine. Like,
and I'm just like, okay, like, all right. I'm definitely getting a donut on the way home. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I don't even. A donut. People are like, people will bring up to me being like, oh, have you ever thought about building a house or getting a house built for you? I'm like, I don't know if I could handle watching someone build me a house. I would be like, they would kick me off site. They'd kick me off site because I'd be like, yo, this is like 5/8 out. And they're going to be like, oh, that's fine. I'll be like, no, it's not.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And then you went to work with Larry and the boats.
Larry and the boats. So with Larry, I had met him through a friend of a friend, and he was just this really old man who had a ton of contacts not a ton of contacts, but a ton of people around that knew who he was and knew what he did. So he used to just build docks, and a lot of it for the St. Lawrence River, and Brockville is right on the St. Lawrence River. So we have a lot of people who live on the water. And he just did it really like kind of out of his backyard, like very just an old man building docks, and people knew that. So I had gotten in with him, and I remember he had brought me out to do like a little weld test. He wanted to see if I was going to be worth bringing me out there because he was actually getting pretty sick and he couldn't weld anymore, but he could do all the work, just not put it together and just not weld anymore. So he brings me out and he gives me this little paper template, and he is like the stereotypical kind of like very old man, like welder, like 65, like just, you could tell, like just he's seen things, he's done things. So he brings me out and he brings me back to his little shop and he's drawing out this little piece of paper, honest, like for real, a cigarette. He's drawing me out his little blueprint, throws it to me and he goes, go cut these out, go find steel in the yard and just cut it out. So I was very nervous Nelly, because I'm like, you know, you're out in the middle of nowhere. This guy gives me a little piece of paper and I'm like, okay, like I'll go look through the grass for this. So I find it, cut them out. I do 6 of them. They were just like the little anchors that would go on the top of the docks. You would tie your rope through. I cut them out and it was oxypropane he was using, which I had
terrible.
never.
That's so slow.
It was, and I was used to oxyacetylene and I had never used oxypropane. So he comes over, shows me how to like set it up. Cause I'm like,
yeah, because you got to crank the propane. You got to crank it.
Yeah. So he gives me like a quick lesson, kind of like throws it at me, goes back to his little chair. He's got his little beer sitting there. And he's just watching and I'm cutting them out and they're falling. I'm cutting them out. They're falling. And I can tell, I'm like, this is not going well. Like I'm seeing them come out. I'm like, you know, he comes over, but I was like, it is what it is. You know, he comes over and he's like, not one of these are the same. Not one of these are the same. I was like, not yet. Not yet.
Let me get to grinding. I'm a good grinder.
Yeah, not yet. So again, because God bless, I was so good at grinding by this point. Took me 15 minutes to get these 6 all like pristine. And like, again, when I was cutting them out, they didn't look too good. By the time I finished polishing them up, they were all exact, all looked really good. Looks at them, kind of shrugs. He's like, would have been better if you didn't have to grind it. Oh, I know, I'll get there. And he hired me on. And that was the most fun I have ever had in a job, where he had a little boat and we'd go out in his boat and we'd go to these different islands during the day and do measurements for their docks and talk to these people and kind of see what they were doing. He ended up right before, unfortunately, he did pass away. We were getting ready. He had a barge that we were going to cut apart to turn into a bridge from one island to another, just like a little, like it was literally just so his golf cart could go across. Because the guy wanted his golf cart to go from island to island. And unfortunately, like, so we were getting ready to like kind of start planning that and like see if we wanted to do it or see if he could do it. And unfortunately he passed away. But again, like more. Did he pass away like
suddenly? Like just like you went to work and one day it was like, oh no, Larry's not here.
Yeah, so like it had been like we were talking a lot. We'd always kind of like meet up for lunch. And at this point, winter had hit and it was an outdoor shop. So we weren't welding outside anymore. And we were more just talking about learning. We were learning about for next summer coming, like what I was going to do, like why I was going to do it, just like a lot of like the nitty gritty stuff. And one day I just got a phone call and said, Larry has passed away. And it was a bummer, but I think that's just life. You know what I mean? Like with welding, especially when you make it that old and especially from what he had done in his career. He was surprised he was still alive to that day. Even he's like, I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting at this point.
Yeah. My mentors, one of my mentors died young and, you know, it's the industry, right? It's what it takes a lot of, especially back in the day, it really took a lot out of you. I think it's better for kids coming up now. But I worry about my health. I mean, I welded stainless for over 10 years without ever wearing a mask. Like, I mean, it was totally normal. And I'm talking flux core 052 stainless. Like, I mean, I'm breathing in gallons of smoke. And it was like, now it's like, oh, if you breathe any of this stuff, you're dead. It's like, oh, thanks. Like,
I got a joke for you, boys.
So did you think about taking over Larry's reins? Like, I mean, it sounds like you had a good business there. That might have been a fun thing to take that over and be the dock girl, you know?
Not really, just because like it was so low key and it was, and it was really based on these people just knew Larry and they knew his quality of work. Like he wasn't advertising like, hey, I do docks. Like I was doing this more in the evenings and then doing like a regular welding job during the day. And then I would literally just go out and sit in this field and weld these docks together, listening to my music. And it was just me, myself, and I, and Larry sitting in a chair. And it was great. Like, I think it was more just I never saw it as like, this is going to be my career, because I knew I really wanted to get back into the structural. And as well, I don't know how to swim. No, I'm a big fan of water. So I knew it wasn't really going to be like my finishing career, but it was just such a great learning stepping stone that helped, I think, build me into like the type of welder I am today, where, coming from a school setting, and again, I had no previous like background in welding or putting things together. I
Yeah.
didn't have the mindset of like looking at a pile of scrap and then putting it together into something else. Like in my head, I'm like, I have to order steel to make this. And Larry's like, no, I got this out here. We'll cut that, put that there. I got that over there. Just bring that up and put that there. And so it was a great experience in the fabrication side, I think. Yeah.
So back up. You don't know how to swim.
No.
So you grew up in Brockville, Ontario, on the St. Lawrence River, and you don't know how to swim.
I fear the water out of respect.
So this tells me something. I'm going to put my psychology hat on and say, you must have had some traumatic experience with water early on to scare you from the water, because all mammals can swim. This is science. All mammals can swim. You throw any mammal in the water and they'll swim unless they panic. Panic makes you sink. So
yeah.
What is it that happened that makes you be like, no dice with the water?
Honestly, I can't really put my finger on it, but it's just no dice. Like I'm always like, where's my floaties? Does anybody have a life jacket? Like I love a good sitting pool. I love a pool with a floaty. Like I'll get in the water as long as I have. Like I could, like if I was on the Titanic,
forget it.
Like it was a no-go. Like
because I respect water. I respect water. I'm scared of drowning. Like I think it's normal to be scared of drowning, but I can swim. People, because like I have a boat. I go out fishing lots in the summer, and people are always like, come out with me on my boat, and my boat's got like one of those little dive off, like you can dive off of it and stuff. And my friends will always dive into the water, like, Max, dive in. I'm like, no. Like, I don't like diving into the lake in the middle of the lake. It freaks me out because I'm just kind of scared. And I have life jacket. And then people are like, oh, you can't swim? It's like, no, actually, I'm a really good swimmer. I just don't like the idea of getting my toes nibbled on by a giant jackfish. I don't know. It freaks me out. Or when you see the weeds, the big deep weeds, that freaks me out. It's like, I've watched too many horror movies. I know Michael Myers is down there, or Jason or somebody. So I'll just stay in my boat and do boat stuff, listen to my music, smoke cigarettes. I don't know, boat stuff, you know? All right. So you're done with Larry, or sorry, Larry's done with you, I guess. And now what? You know, because you are working two jobs, which seems not, I'm the worst. I'm not going to tell you that you shouldn't work two jobs, because I've worked 2 or 3 jobs my entire life. I found it to be my recipe for success, is to just outwork the world, and it worked out for me. But I don't know necessarily if it's a healthy choice for lifestyle. So, you know, like you mentioned a couple times that you always got at least 2 jobs. Why?
Yeah.
Why Montana?
Well, I think that was in my early 20s, when I was like really desperate to find my path. And I wasn't sure, like I definitely like enjoyed every job for different reasons, but I wasn't sure if this was my to-go-to job. And then there was always like a little bit of fear that, okay, what if I switch to this job and I actually don't like it and I want to go back to the old job? So I'm always like 1 foot, 2 foot, like 1 foot in each door kind of, until I make my decision. And it's not like I was like dying, you know, with like Larry working on the docks, like that would be until maybe 8:30, 9:30 at night. That wasn't too bad. And then again, it's like easy work. With the windows and doors, I mean, you've built windows and doors. It's more technical. It's more just like real finicky work where you're really got to be very particular with it. And with the Ma and Pa shop, like that was, again, easy work because I was always used to doing it. So I think like every time I was looking for that second job, I was just always looking for
more knowledge,
something else. More knowledge. And then once I got that, I always went back to like that little Ma and Pa shop in my hometown. And then I did windows and doors in that one. And then I stopped windows and doors because again, everything was square, and then you bring it to site and then everything's out of square, which like I can appreciate. Everybody has their own role and everything. But I I didn't love that aspect. So I was like, okay, it's not for me because I don't have enough passion to keep doing this. And then I went back to Ma and Pa, and then I started with Larry, and then Larry passed away, and then I went back again to Ma and Pa. And then I realized, like, okay, at this point, I'm kind of one of like the higher up welders here. You know, I've been around the block a few times. Like, what's next now? And that's when I had one of the girls I had graduated with. Her name is Dakota. She had worked for an inspection company in Ottawa, Ontario, and she had posted in our like alumni graduation group that you get added into, like, hey, we're looking for welding inspectors in Ottawa for XYZ. Like, if you're interested, send me a message. And Dakota and I were always incredibly close. She was a year ahead of me, but in that first year, like, I was always kind of like her little duck following her around, like, what are we doing? What are we doing? How do you do this? Like, I'd always go to her for help. And she got me into welding inspection in Ottawa. And that's when I started that.
So did you get your inspection, your level 1 before you went to Ottawa, or did you get it there?
I got it there. So I got it with my boss. I was hired. Bhupinder Karal was my boss. And so Bhupinder really took me and showed me a ton of stuff, really educated me and helped me to get my level 1.
And did you at that point think that, you know, like, had inspection been on your radar before? Like, had it been something you thought about in your time welding and working with places, or even coming out of school? Was it on your radar, or was basically this opportunity the first time you really thought about it?
That opportunity was really the first time I had ever thought about it, because again, like, I love welding and I love learning about welding. And I just thought when I saw it come up, I was like, well, this looks like a different way to look at welding and like see what's getting done more behind the scenes. So it really drew my attention, and yeah.
And what was that experience for you like, coming out now and being, you know, the weld narc?
Oh, it was rad. It was so rad, man. Like, everybody says like they're so like, oh my God, the inspector's coming, but like, it's me showing up. Like, hey, like.
Well, let me tell you, if the inspector actually comes with some welding experience, that changes everything. It changes the attitude of the people on the floor. It changes the attitude of the people you're inspecting. It's a huge thing to have welding experience behind an inspection ticket.
Yeah, it was rad, man. Like, I can't say I had a better experience. Like, the people I met, the things I got to see, the things I got to experience. Like, I can't say. It was a trip. It was a trip. It was a job I'll never forget. It was amazing.
What stuff were you inspecting? What kind of jobs were they?
I did the the LAC, which is the Library and Archive of Canada. So I did a bunch of those. I also got to see this really cool, it was literally just a recycling, it's called AIM Recycling in Ottawa, go up. So to see that thing get built start to finish, and Bhupinder is a welding engineer. So to see that really come to fruition from start to beginning was insanely cool. I got to see a lot of things around my own hometown kind of come together. And it was a great learning experience, because I didn't realize how much welding goes into stuff and how much it really is monitored. Because before my other jobs, like, yes, I was monitored welding, but never by like, I had QA/QC always, but I never had an inspector coming in to see what I had done. So that was a really cool experience. And just to see, like, a lot of the jobs were start to finish. Like, you would go to see the columns and the base plates before they poured the concrete. Then you'd go back and, you know, it was so cool seeing it come together like a big Lego set, pretty much. And like, just different ways of putting it together. So I just got to, like, everything I saw, even if it was just like I went to Canadian Tire and they redid some trusses in there, I was psyched. I was like, that's so cool. Like, I shop here. So.
And what was it like reconnecting with Dakota?
It was really cool. I mean, my name's Montana and her name is Dakota.
You guys are basically next to each other in the U.S.
Yeah, we're the United States, hands down. Like, but when we would go to site, like, the first couple of months, like, I was always with Dakota, or Dakota was always with me watching what I was doing. And same thing with like Bhupinder and everything like that. It was amazing because we just got along so well, and we have such the same sense of humor and there's so many funny stories that I could tell you of us on site together, but it was amazing. It was amazing. Like I said, so many great people, so many talented people with the stuff they were putting out. And you're right, like, because I was a welder, when I did show up, like sometimes, like I saw you hide your sins there. Like, I know what you're up to. Like, I know what you tried to do there. So like, I'll go look over here while you fix that. You know what I mean? And I'd go back, have a look at it. And, they were all very reasonable. It was just a great experience, a really great experience.
And how long did that last for?
I did that for about a year and a half.
Why for such a short period of time? Sounds like an awesome job.
I got the opportunity to move to Alberta.
Why would you move to Alberta if you already got a killer job in Ottawa?
Because it was such a killer job, but everybody knows Ontario is so expensive.
Yeah.
So long term, I was thinking, it was a great opportunity really to get to go to Alberta and the chance that I did. So I decided, I was like, well, might as well, that's what I thought. I was like, I know I love this, and I've never tried Alberta, and who knows, like maybe Alberta, I might love a job out there, or, something, I'll buy a house, or houses are more affordable. Living's a little bit more affordable out there than Ontario for buying houses, especially where I'm living right now. And I just decided to do it because I think I was 24 at the time. And not that I'm much older, I'm 25 now, but I was 24 at the time. And it just kind of lined up well. So I was like, well, I'll give it a go.
And did you go out there as an inspector?
No, I applied as a welder and an inspector to a ton of different jobs. And I ended up getting this job with the CWB as inside sales.
So you got the inside sales job in Alberta?
Correct.
But you were already in Alberta?
I was, yes. Yeah.
So what job did you have in Alberta before CWB?
No, it's like I had moved to Alberta, was just free vibing.
I see. So I thought you had found a job in Alberta already, and that's why you went there. But you just went to Alberta being like, let's find something.
Yeah, I was like, well, now I felt like it was like the best time to try a new province, and like, why not? And so that's why I had went. And then prior to moving to Alberta, I was applying for jobs in Alberta, and this one came to fruition, and I got this one.
So how long did you end up staying in Alberta for?
I stayed for just over a year, like a year, 13 months, 14 months.
And why didn't you just stay there then? It is more affordable living for, in general, to be in the West, right? So why didn't you stay, and what brought you back to Ontario then?
My family, I have a pretty big family, and they're all in this area. Like my mom, my dad, my siblings, majority of my friends, they were all here. And I was always coming back to visit them like every 2 months or so to fly back and forth. And I just missed it. I missed the water. Not to say like I loved Alberta. I loved the landscape and the sky. The sky is a game changer out there. But it was just hard being away from my family and my friends and everything. And it just felt not it.
Yeah, it wasn't where you wanted to be,
Yeah, wasn't the spot.
All right. Well, let's take a break now for our advertisers and sponsors. And, we'll when we get back on the show here with Montana, we're going to be talking about, the transition into CWB, which is now desk work from as opposed to being, out in the field, and what that's been like, and kind of running us through what it's like doing her job today. So we'll be right back here on the CWB Association podcast. I'm Max Ceron, and we'll be back with Montana Woolley.
The CWB Association is new and improved and focused on you. We offer a free membership with lots of benefits to anyone interested in joining an association that is passionate about welding. We are committed to educating, informing, and connecting our workforce. Gain access to your free digital publication of the Weld magazine, free online training, conferences, and lots of giveaways. Reach out to your local CWB Association chapter today to connect with other welding professionals and share welding as a trade in your community. Build your career, stay informed, and support the Canadian welding industry. Join today and learn more at cwbassociation.org.
And we are back here on the CWB Association podcast. My name is Max Ceron, and I'm here with Montana, who is an inside sales rep for the CWB and has been at this job for, I think, about a year or so now. How long you been here with CWB?
Just over about a year and a half now.
A year and a half. All right. And you kind of moved to Alberta from Ontario to find out a welding gig to see what it was like, but then never really got to do that. Did you do any welding actually in Alberta? Did you finish your apprenticeship? Are you a Red Seal welder? Did that not finish? What happened in Alberta?
So Alberta was it was a trip. It was a trip. Things kind of got away on me, and I fell into this role, which you're right, is like an inside sales desk job role. And there is a reason behind why I decided to take a break from welding. But no, my apprenticeship is still in action. I mean, I want to say, like, I'm really at the cusp of being done. I'm just missing, I want to say, a brutal amount of like maybe 100 hours at this point. And I already have completed the practical portion of the Red Seal. So at this point, I'm just waiting on my last 100 hours and to write the final exam, which is definitely, I want to get that done. Like, I'd love to
that should be on your professional development list.
It is 100%. It is. But I decided to take a break more from like the physical aspect of welding, just because I do have a really bad back. I just, at that point in my career, my back was really having a hard time keeping up with the amount of work I was putting it through. So I decided to just take a step back for a little while and focus on getting my body in action, because again, I had so much experience seeing all these older guys struggling so hard in their day-to-day life. Physically with the things they were trying to do because they didn't take care of themselves. You don't think of what it's going to do to you when you're 50, 60. You're just excited in that moment to get the job done and do the work. So I decided to take a little bit of time off and just kind of focus on my welding skill per se. So I do spend a ton of time in my garage working on my skill level, like what it's looking like, my ability to put things together, my fitting ability. And getting my back kind of back in like a good place where, like, I know at 25, like, I'm not as young, so my body's not going to come back as fast as it was in my earlier 20s as it will in my coming later 20s.
Right now, everyone listening to you that's over 40 is like, what are you talking about?
I know.
The difference between 20 and 25 is zero. Let me tell you that right now.
There is a difference. There is. I felt it in my knees.
Oh my gosh.
The morning of 25, I had arthritis. I knew it. I woke up. I said, I'm old. I need a casket or something.
Oh my gosh. Wait till you're 50, girl. My gosh. But yeah, I get it. I made the choice too. I mean, not that early. I welded until I was in my mid 30s. But I definitely was like, yeah, this is getting tough. I remember the last shutdown I did. I was like, this is a young man's game. I don't know how I did this. Like, I'm hurting now.
Well, it's not per se, like, I don't think I'm going to be out of the game for a while. I just think that at the point with my doctors and everything, like, it was just such a teetering point of whether either we're going to be doing this every day for the rest of your life, or we can do this every day and you stop doing what you're doing and we can get you back to where you should be. And then you can start again if you'd like. Yeah. So that's kind of just what I'm waiting for, just because, again, like, I do want to have a really successful life forever and be able to do everything that I want to do. And I was, like I said, double fist in the welding jobs was not ideal for my body, especially because I've never had a good back. So, but yeah, so that's what I'm doing. But I love it. I love the inside sales job. I love the clients. I love it.
Do you think you would have gone down a sales path, like even just not even thinking about CWB, if you wouldn't have gone down welding? Like, did you feel ever in your life like, hey, I'm pretty good at sales? Because that's kind of a big shift, like, I don't think I would be very good at sales. I'm not, and I've even owned businesses and ran sales and like, I've done the whole thing. But sales was always like the part where I felt like I needed to hire somebody else. Like, it's like I needed someone to come help me with that part, because I didn't feel like I enjoyed trying to make people buy something they didn't already have. Or I don't. It's kind of a weird block I had in my brain. How did you feel coming into a sales role? Did you feel confident, or did you need how did you even look at that?
It's kind of true because when I saw the job, I was like, okay, welding at home, it's an at-home job. It's about like the CWB. Love the CWB. Always known about the CWB, obviously.
Yeah.
So I kind of just jumped for it, wanted to give it a go. I got into it. I wasn't confident at first at all. But my predecessor, Shelly Jeffrey, she was great. Like, she really showed me how to do things, like what the schedule would like look like for sales, like how you should follow up. And same thing with like the team I'm in right now. Everybody I work with has just been so amazing when they all do have sales backgrounds, and I don't. And I always make the joke, like I'm kind of like the feral cat that they've brought inside. And like I'm learning how to play nicely with everybody and, act like a house cat now. So they've been super, super patient, and like my whole team, like John Veith, everybody has been just great and really helping to guide me and like build me into sales. But I didn't really actually look at this as like, okay, I'm selling things. Like, I don't look at it like that. I look at it like I've been on the other end of the phone calling the CWB, looking for a couple answers and looking to understand the process behind things and courses, and especially the level 1 course, since I took it and I am a level 1. I look at it as like, I'm excited to help people with their questions and advance their welding career. Whereas like right now, it's not necessarily about like, what am I doing for mine, but I'm making these great contacts with people and I'm helping them get from point A to point B when they don't think they could actually get there in some cases.
Yeah, you're helping them solve a problem, right?
Yeah, and that's more the aspect of it I like. Like, I mean, I'm great at sales as a benefit, but I had always looked at it as like, I'm excited to work with the companies and get the companies sorted and like get them happy. So like they know what they're doing and they're happy with what I'm doing.
Yeah. And in terms of like your welding background, we talked about like how helpful your welding background was to become an inspector, and how that it kind of brings some clout to what you're doing, so people know that you're not just full of BS. Now, do you find that welding background also helpful? Like, you're the feral cat that they brought in. Well, the feral cat also knows how to fight, and the house cat doesn't, right? So there's things that the outside does better than the inside. So what do you bring to the table coming in as a welder inspector now to your team?
I think honestly, like, just the fact that I am a welder and inspector. So when they do have the questions that like pop up, like, hey, like, what do you know about this? Or, like, what is the process of this or anything like that? Like, I'm always like super excited to be able to help them, give them the answers and get them that, like, show them how it works in the process on the other side of the phone of what our clients are going through. So I think that's been helpful. So like, and I mean, like, we have meetings, obviously, the team and I, and like I've shown them what an inspection report looks like. I've shown them, okay, like, this is what you would do when you get to site. This is what you're looking at. And with my background, obviously, like, I have a good knowledge of the CSA codes and everything. So I think I'm used for that too. We're like, where do you think I would find this in this CSA? And for the most part, I'm pretty good at just like sending them the actual, just like 7.4.11, like, and then you'll find your answer. So yeah, and I think that's been great. And yeah, it's been great. It's just been, like I said, like, I love learning and I love welding. So I think this has just been a great opportunity to see it from yet another side of the industry.
Yeah. And what has been some of the biggest things you've learned coming into this side of the fence? Because like, I mean, for myself as a lifelong welder, it was interesting when you're like, we love the CWB. I come from an industry that we didn't, it was like out in the West. We're not like huge, like, yay, CWB. It was more like, CWB coming to take our money again. So now I'm on this side of the fence and I'm cognizant of that, being like, hey, we're not always the good guy. Sometimes we are the mandatory part of the industry. That is a bunch of hoops for people to jump through, that they are like, oh, we got to do this again. So what can we do to make that better or communicate better our side of that story? What have you learned about, your side or your time now in the CWB?
What a tricky question. What a tricky question. think I hear what you're saying. I definitely see like there are like a lot of companies out there who are not like loving the CWB, and that's
Mhm.
their prerogative, and I can totally understand it, and I understand their side of it, and I can see it. I think in my experience with the CWB, I see what's going on behind the scenes where I think even though I think that even though like as any company grows and learns, like every company discusses things, and some people don't like what some companies do, and that's okay. But like you said, like we're the regulatory body in some cases, and people, we don't always love mom and dad, but
Yeah.
they're there. You know what I mean? We
Yeah.
don't always love them, but they're trying to look out for us, and that's all. At the end of the day, we're just trying for the betterment of welding.
Yeah.
And I think, and that's just and I think some people think we're just there to discipline and maybe not be so nice, but I think we are just trying to make welding more accessible, easier to do, and fun to learn about. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's what
no.
I think. That's how I feel.
No, and it's true. Like, I mean, I think you kind of nailed it there. Like when you said, like, well, you don't have to necessarily like mom and dad, but they're looking out for you. I always give people the example of airplanes. Like, people are like, oh, codes and standards are just a money grab, blah, blah, blah. I hear it all the time in my life, and it's like, okay, well, you want to get on that airplane at 30,000 feet at 1,000 kilometers an hour and not think that anyone checked? Would you like people to have checked? I think you would like people to have checked, because checking is important. So, it's easy to say that we don't want it, or it's cumbersome or whatever. But at the end of the day, we all want to know that we're safe in the things that we're doing, the buildings we're in, the bridges we're driving over, the planes that we're flying in, the boats we're sailing in. We want to know that there was some form of procedure to make sure this was okay. Same with doctors, and same with lawyers, and same with plumbers. And so we're not outside of that. And I think it's important for us, as CWB advocates now, to try to be like, hey, yes, that is a part of the industry, but we're also helping you get there. We're not just throwing it on the table and being like, here, good luck, man. Check it out, bro. Like, no, it's like, okay, well, this is where you got to get. How do we get there? What do you need? And that's the other side of the coin that we tried. And with the association, it's like, and even the foundation, it's like that extra step, like not even just your job, but the industry in general, making sure that it's healthy and strong, right?
Yeah. And I just, I think the CWB is great, honestly. Like the more I get to learn about it, and trust me, I've been on the other side where I am a welder, and I'm kind of like, like this, okay, like great, I'll do this now because the CWB says I have to. But now seeing the whole picture, like I understand it and I get it. And even though it sucks, you got to do it sometimes, and that's just what it is. And I get it now, and I think the CWB is just doing their best, their utmost best to help its people, and yeah.
Now, what do you see for your future? Like you've been winding all over the place. You want to climb the ranks of the sales organization at CWB and be the big head honcho someday. Would you like to try out other areas of CWB? When you look at your dream list, what do you see in the future? Even just opportunities.
Honestly, I love it. I love to see where this job in the CWB takes me. Right now, I did just buy my first house just a few months ago back in Ontario. So for the career, like because my life has been so winding these past couple of years, I've decided this year, like I'm not going to go look for anything specifically. I'm going to see what comes my way in prosperity for my career and just kind of take it day by day. And I mean, I'm so excited that I have my own house now, that I've been planning like a ton of like little welding projects that I want to get done for my house specifically. So I've just honestly been spending a lot of time puttering in my garage, doing that kind of thing. And I'm satiated, I get the smell, I get that, it's great to be home with all my other friends who are still welders. So I get the better smells off them when they come by and everything. And it's great. Like, for my career, I'm just going to see what comes my way for now, and just enjoy what I've done so far.
Yeah. I got to ask you a weird question. Do you like to read? Are you a reader?
I'm a big reader.
All right,
Big reader.
because you used the word satiated, and that's a fantastic word. It's great vernacular, and a lot of people, I wouldn't, I don't hear a lot of great vocabulary out in the world anymore. And as a big avid reader myself, I appreciated the use of a good word. So
Yeah,
loved it,
thank you.
loved it. So I caught on to that right away. I'm like, okay, she must read, because that's not one
Yeah.
that comes up on the on Facebook. Like
Yeah.
So, and you're here now, you're playing it day by day, everything's rolling good. You're happy, you got your house. Let's talk about what's in your house, because I know you got pets. So let's talk. How many pets you got?
I have a good solid amount. I want to say all in all, I'm in the 20s.
Holy,
Yeah.
you love it though.
Yeah. I love it, man. I love it. No, I have no landlord. Nobody's telling me I can't bring home anything else. I'm taking down walls. I'm putting up supports for these guys. Like, it's the best. So I have a full house over here.
Mm-hmm.
I have 2 dogs, 4 cats, a lot of bunnies, turtle. I have a fish tank. I have a snake. And I have a wounded mole that I have living in my garage that I've named Guacamole.
Guacamole. I love it. Love it. So
Yeah.
as a fellow turtle lover and advocate and owner, tell me about your turtle before we end up the show here.
So Paul is a red-eared slider, and actually you and I were just messaging about him because he does actually have a little shell rot right now, which is a very common in soft shelled turtles. I took him to the vet. We went to the exotic vet together, me and Paul. And it turns out he must have, when I was filling his new tank, I filled it too high. And he's a rascal. He is just a rat. That's the easiest way to put it. Anything he can get into, he wants to get into it. And I didn't realize turtles have such a little personality on them. Like, they truly are.
They are like very intelligent animals. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a cat dog crossover, like personality wise. And he had escaped from his enclosure. Yeah. And he had actually chipped a little side of his shell when he landed.
Yeah.
He got a small crack, and that's what started the shell rot. And I didn't even notice it because he's also growing right now. So his shell is actually peeling as the shell's getting bigger. So it was a big panic. But anyways, Paul's good to go. So me and Paul, we'd be vibing.
Good. Yeah, that happened to Pepperoni. She got out of her tank once, cracked her shell, but I caught it right away. And I called our exotic vet, and he's like, just crazy glue it. And I was like, really? They're like, yeah, for real. So I crazy glued the crack, and she healed up, although it leaves a scar. She has a little scar. She has a scar in her, like, as much as she's grown and her shell sheds every few months, the scar stays. And it's really interesting to see how she's got her little scar in her shell from when she did the big dump. And now I know not to put the water up so high because they figure out how to get out. They're smart.
Yeah. It was my bad. It was a mom mistake. It was a mom mistake. So yeah, I did not get the mom award that time.
All right. Well, Montana, thank you so much for being on the show. Is there any shout outs or anything you'd like to say to anybody?
I don't think so. I don't think
well, I'm going to shout out Paul.
Who's helped me along. Yeah, Paul. Thank God for Paul. Thanks for being chill and not mad at me for not noticing. I'm very sorry. It was small. To be completely honest, like, it was, even the vet was like right there, and I'm like, where? So it was small, but yeah, thank God for Paul, and just thank God for everybody who's helped me to get to this point in my life, and my sales team, and Dakota, Bhupinder, everybody. So just super thankful.
And if anybody wants to come work at CWB, how did you find it? And just, if anyone's interested.
I put it on Indeed. I found CWB was actually really great for advertising for what jobs are available in that area on all the platforms available that people look on.
Awesome. So if anyone's interested in coming to work for CWB, or maybe possibly even work with Montana, just check out your local job ads. And I know that we have our own careers page at CWB Group as well. So that's fantastic. Again, thank you, Montana, for taking the time today to be with us.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. And for all the people that have been watching and following along, Thank you so much for sticking it out and being great fans of our show. Thanks for the commentary. And also, please send us any recommendations or ideas you have. Right now, we're rebuilding, or we're not rebuilding, but we're looking to build out next year's set list for guests. And any ideas or recommendations or companies or stars or people that you know, send them our way. We'll chase them down, or we'll even look into them. If you're just curious and have questions, we'll try to find the answers for you. So keep downloading, sharing, and commenting. Love you very much. Stay tuned for the next episode.
We hope you enjoy the show.